Hello, dear friends, and welcome to Inside Reading Enlightenment, a podcast where the notes on the page are only the beginning. I'm your host, Darina Blogin, a Traverso player and eternal enthusiast. And yes, if you have been listening for a while, you may have noticed that I disappeared for a moment. Live music and a few other projects took over, but I missed the space and I missed you very much. I'm truly happy to be back with new interviews, fresh conversations, and renewed curiosity about early music and the people who bring it to life today. So thank you for being here or for finding your way back. Let's continue reading between the lines together. And today I have a special guest. This interview was recorded in May of this year in Versailles.
I'm Reinoud Van Mechelen, I'm tenor, and I'm also the artistic leader of my ensemble nocte temporis.
And you have started this ensemble not so long time ago, right? So it's your fresh start, let's say.
Yeah, it's already next year, 2026, we will be 10 years old.
Oh, really?
Yeah, but we started really as a small chamber music group, which we still are, but every now and then we do much bigger projects with choir, orchestra, and soloist. And my goal would be with the ensemble to develop in this both ways. In the sense, I really like to make chamber music, but it's also nice to do bigger things like operas and stuff. It's for the repertoire, but also for the energy, because I like making chamber music, but I like also to be in charge of the bigger machine, let's say. So that's how I see it.
And what kind of repertoire do you do with this ensemble? Is it more Baroque music, or you touch on some Renaissance music, or maybe early classical, romantic?
So the ensemble is co-founded by my wife, Anna Besson, who is a flute player, traverso. So it's, for the moment, we do mostly 18th century, 17th, 18th century. We just had a Mozart CD that came out. We do also 17th century, mainly French music. We didn't dive into Renaissance music. It wouldn't be impossible to go there. And we touch a bit to romantic music with Beethoven, Weber program. So it's the name nocte temporis is a Latin translation of the French saying depuis la nuit des temps, which is since night of time, which means since very long time. And for me, it's always looking to what is a difference with our past, but also what connects us. And in general, it's the human emotion, the human stories are still very touching for us. And in that way, we're really open to move repertoire. But of course, our center repertoire is the Baroque music. And it was for me also important. We're based in Belgium, in Flanders, so the Flemish-speaking side of Belgium. I did since years this French Baroque music, which I love deeply. And I saw that in Belgium it has many difficulties to really find his public and to get appreciated, and I wanted to work on it. So we're working on this. So this work I want to continue. We just did a Clérambault recording that came out. We also in December did Pygmalion of Rameau together with Zémide by Pierre Izot, which is completely unknown, but a beautiful piece of music. Why do I say this? That for me there still stays a lot to discover. At the other hand, we dive also into the more common repertoire. We will play in a couple of weeks the John Passion, and in that way I also want to develop in the more known repertoire, which I love very much and where I think we have a story to tell.
That's interesting that you have mentioned that you would like to make the music, some French works, artworks in music that are less known, more visible and accessible for the audience. Why do you think it developed this way, that some works, they got kind of hidden? Is it historically, or why do you think it happened that we don't know, or like some works are less known?
Yeah, it's a complicated question. Of course, there's something about, there's a major composer, Bach, of course, who became very dominant with all the reasons we have to love all of his music, who is a composer who was defended by both modern and also Baroque players, because his music survives everything.
That's true. Bach is unkillable.
Yeah. So you can playing on any instrument.
20 saxophones.
So it's really very special. Then let's face it, there's the easier Baroque music, which I love also. We just did a program with some Vivaldi. There's Handel, which is it's a very accessible way where Baroque music stays, in my opinion, close to good pop music. I mean, it's good music, but it's very accessible. The French music, I think, is more accessible as people would think, but of course the whole tragédie lyrique has to do a lot with theater and how you dive into the piece, and is very close to text, closer than, for example, a Handel oratorio. Of course, Handel works with the text, but the tragédie lyrique of the end of the 17th century is really very close to text, and it's in that way that you can defend it. Still, Rameau, his biggest arias are very close related to the text. So therefore, maybe it takes more time for people to identify with that music. And it's also a music which had a big influence on all the other European Baroque music, on Handel and Bach, for example, but which it's easier killable than Bach, for example, in the sense that if it's badly done, it really can fall apart. Rameau starts to be an exception, but for example, I do wonderful music by Marat Marais or Campra, which if you don't defend it fully, it's just not worth it. If you do it very well, you can get back very much of that music. That's my opinion.
Interesting. And maybe you could also tell about your motivation, why you have started this ensemble, and why did you have this wish to start this activity in the conducting field? Why did you want to become a conductor as well?
I still have difficulties today to really call myself a conductor, but for me it's really it was an artistic wish for me, or in some way even a need for me to feel happy enough in the field. I'm very happy to work with other groups and other ensembles, but I felt the need to be every now and then in charge artistically, also to choose repertoire, choose activities. For example, we go and work with kids locally. We do other works in this sense, which is for me also very important, and which is not easy in my time schedule to find time with, but with the ensemble I make time for those activities. So it's rather a social idea. And for example, I sing opera. I do a bit less, but still I do a couple of productions a year. There you're a little radar in a big machine, and that's fine, and you can learn a lot, but there's also a lot of stupidity about a big machine, not only opera, but the big thing. And every now and then it's nice to have more responsibilities. It doesn't mean for me that when it's with my group everything is perfect, and no, we have other problems, but I try to find solutions in another way, in my way. So for me it was a way to be able to continue my career with my group, also with other people, staying happy in what I was doing. So that's really the idea, to stay happy, also working for other people, which still is very important for me, and which is where I learned so much. I mean, I had the chance to work with people like William Christie, Philippe Herrewege, but also Peter Sellers as a stage director, Simon Rattle. Those people are really inspirations for me.
It's interesting that you talk about it, this machine where you do like a big opera production, and you have to be like functioning as a unit within this machine. Do you think it's a bit more like an old-fashioned perspective approach that is not so relevant and coherent to our time anymore? How do you experience it as an artistic soul and a singer and a musician?
I don't know if it's less relevant in the sense that big machines still exist for many things. I mean, when we go to the shop, 9 of the 10, we go to a big supermarket who buys his products in very big things. It's just that in an opera, there are many exceptions, but sometimes the music and a part of the artistic thing is a bit forgotten. At the other hand, I did many concert performances of operas where some of the people in charge didn't pay for me enough attention to the theatrical side of the story, which is for me in any concert I do the basic inspiration and the most important thing to keep in mind. So it's to marry those two things on the right level. We did concert performances recently where people sing with the score, but where I believe we completely got the public with us. This is sometimes forgotten in concert performances. At the other hand, sometimes in the opera, the stage director makes you do things that have less or not much to do with what is really written. So therein, it's finding a balance. For me, opera, there are problems and there are very positive things. There's sometimes money to rediscover music, to put a budget in, to open the public, because I have to say, with my ensemble, we're working on building our public, which goes well, but it stays difficult. You do one concert in Brussels, the hall is half full. They do 12 times an opera and it's 12 times full. So opera has a big public where I think we as early music musicians should also go towards that public and bring them to what the story we are telling.
And also I was wondering, what do you think, as you have mentioned, some pieces, they're surviving throughout centuries, like Bach, St. John Passion, and it's always like a selling point in a way nowadays that people know and they go, or like Christmas oratorio, everybody goes every year and it's so like well known. Do you think it does something to the actual music piece and its perception from the audience?
People are more happy that they're already ready to receive more than with unknown pieces, and it can do things in both ways, for the public but also for us as musicians. When we do a John Passion, I'm not at all a person saying, when I do my ensemble, I'm not in any extreme. I'm not saying let's certainly not do like him or him. I'm also not saying let's imitate the version of him or him. And it happens that in a Passion I take 2-3 things in a really different tempo than we're used to, but because I have reasons for it. I've theatrical, because it's written adagio, and sometimes the early music thinks adagio is too slow, or so in this way you see that musicians are less ready to adapt, to change. But then when we do it, it gets another interest, and it gets another meaning, which I think is good. So I like also to go in that field and to try new things, and we have to be careful. Something I hope I can avoid myself as a musician, but I'm not saying I will succeed, but to become just falling in a habit and okay, we do 10 Christmas oratorio, okay, we know it. And for me, it's to have every day you have to tell the message like it's the first time, because if not, it's just oh yeah, you know the thing. Then I mean, if I spoke now to you in a way like, oh, but everybody knows what I'm going to tell you. Why am I speaking to you? So it's the same for me as music. It's when you do a Christmas oratorio, every word has its meaning. And even if you believe or you don't believe, but to give it the right wait. And for me, this is very important. And there are some we just do, we do as usual and it will work. For me, it will work is not enough.
I was just wondering, it creates like in a way like a cycle that we expect, that the audience expects also some certain repertoire. Otherwise they're like, oh, what is this composer, like French composer? I don't know. I will not go. Maybe it's not so interesting. And when I see like Mozart or Tchaikovsky or Bach, we will go to the concert. And in a way, I think it creates a certain dynamic, expectation, and fulfilling this expectation. And although I agree that maybe, as you said, that this purpose, like a meta purpose in a way that, of course, every word has a meaning, but like we have our reality as musicians and we need to support ourselves and earn the money. And what I feel sometimes in our present life, that it's a bit maybe not so much in balance, because we need to get foundations, we need to get the money, we need to like play concerts, and we need to sell those concerts, and we need that the audience is coming. How do you like navigate in the present situation in the world? How does it work in Belgium?
Oh, it's very complicated to find the right things to program, and to therefore I think something I don't like so much is the international star system, so to say, but we have to deal with it, because I'm really a person. I'm not interested in becoming a star, but I'm interested to find a public for the music I want to bring. So therefore, I think I have to, not to become a star, but I have to become a bit more known to be able to present lesser known music to public. So that's one of the things. Even if I'm not interested in becoming famous, I'm really there to defend a certain repertoire and to find public. And I saw, even if we didn't have so much public, we did this trilogy about the haute contrevoice, where we took things of Pascal Collas, we brought things of Piccini, we did very unknown things in the three CDs. Also people who were together with Rameau in France, and they're absolutely great pages of music, but people wouldn't know it. For me, it's a complicated navigation, and we can now. Sometimes when you speak with people of the earlier early music generation, let's say that the early music movement really started in the 70s, 60s, and that it really took off 80s, 90s. Those people say, "Oh, just do something and it will work."
Just play a concert.
Yes, but it doesn't work like this anymore, because there are many of us. In the beginning, it was just, there's this new early music group and everybody wanted to see it. Now there are many. And you have to choose what do we want to do. And for me, it's to find, even if I do a John Passion, I hope I can have new people discovering the John Passion or discover it in another way. And then maybe thanks to the fact I did a John Passion in Hall A or C, A, B or C, maybe in the next year when I do an opera, French opera, they will start and buy a ticket because they saw me in the John Passion. So therefore, it's really to build our public. Then it's also, what can we add? Of course, when we do Mozart repertoire with my group, you're in a repertoire which is also very much played by the modern orchestras, and sometimes in a very good way. So there we have to say, what can we add? What can we do now? Also, what can we add now towards the movement where we're in, which is already an old movement, also musically. For me, sometimes in early music, we go into caricaturas of what is early music. Oh, certainly not legato, or certainly we have to play everything short or something. Why is that? Because we have to see why is the early music movement, or how is it born? It was a reaction against something, and therefore we do this or this. I think now there we have, thanks to big masters in many instruments and in singing, people like the people I worked with, but also Sigis Wat Keuken I also worked with. Those people, of course, all the Keuken brothers, there's Saval, Pierlot, all those people rediscovering the instruments. I think for me now it is okay. We learn this, we read the treatises, we have ideas, and then we make music, and we want to communicate, and we forget a bit when we're in a concert. Just but we are better because we are right. The public doesn't want to know if you're right or wrong. They just want to get an experience. I think that's for me important.
Yes, and it's interesting also the connection to that. Do you mix musics in your concerts? Like, for instance, early music connected with some electronic music or some other contemporary music?
For the moment, as an ensemble, not really. Now I will next year do a program with my wife, just flute and voice. And there, we just did already a little bit in the Concertgebouw in Bruges, and we did a early 20th century piece and answered with a Renaissance piece, where it was a piece on a poem of Ronsard, and then we took a Renaissance piece written on a poem of Ronsard. So I like the idea. First of all, I have to say that I'm not. As a musician, I sung contemporary music and stuff, but I don't feel as at ease in more recent music to be really in charge of conducting and stuff. But I'm open to it. I'm open to more modern music. But of course, we have always the difficulty of instruments. When I see modern orchestras who play a Schumann symphony in the first part, and in the second part they play Stravinsky, if ever, which is, let's be clear, not at all my project, if ever with a nocte we want to play Schumann and Stravinsky in one concert, everybody needs two instruments. Because of course it's historically performed music. I will do very soon, in a couple of weeks, Telemann-Rameau, where then of course we say, okay, the pitch is for 15, we don't go into the more low French pitch, which is already an adventure because we're not really in the same location. Of course, Telemann went to Paris and probably Rameau heard Telemann. But still, that's already an adventure. So that's always, of course, when you're in early music. Yeah, we did also a program where we went from Purcell till Rameau, and we did a whole European tour. There you can accept with instruments. But to do a program where you start with Dowland and you end with Mozart, it's just very complicated to find the right instruments. And for us, the instruments, it's still an important guideline how to play the music, I think.
And what do you think? We were talking about St. John Passion. What do you think about the text, or like die Zauberflöte? What do you think about the texts in nowadays reality? Because the text is rough. I mean, partly it's not fitting to our time anymore, let's say. And do you have any ideas how to deal with this text nowadays? Because when people, especially in German, if they hear it and maybe it strikes them what they hear, how rough it is, you know.
I think a John Passion, or I mean, all sacred music, it's very open for me to a spiritual experience. And of course, you have to see the things differently than they did in the 18th century, how things were set. But for me it's very easy to go in the text in the John Passion. In operas it's very it depends. Of course, there's Zauberflöte, which I sung, and I still have difficulties to really understand the story. It's maybe because I'm not Masonic enough to really get it. But for example, there's much French music where it's about the king, where you have to find another goal for yourself as an artist to how to defend something. But honestly, in many cases, there's a spiritual meaning you can find over it. And this, for example, therefore, even as an early musician, Peter Sellers was important for me. Because the way he reads text and the way we did Castor et Pollux, when he really finds something doesn't fit, he just changes it. And there was something that the goddess brings beauty and the god brings wisdom or something. And he said, what a crap is this? And he just changed it that both brought wisdom, because he didn't find it fitting to our time. And this I found nice. Of course, you can also every now and then sing a word, and you don't have to believe everything 100%. And therefore, it's to us as an artist to find ways to make it work. Very soon, so I do this Telemann Rameau, which is based on the Tageszeit, about Telemann, so morning, noon, evening, and night, and I create every time an answer by music of Rameau, and there it's most Telemann says something, and then I find music of Rameau that has to do with the same time of the day, and I think it's of course a less direct spiritual meaning than in a John Passion, but I still hope that the public can get a bit enchanted by the colors of the music, and there in that way have an experience that helps them in daily life, because I think this is something where it's very complicated. Life nowadays, society is in many ways not very well adapted to what we need as humans. So if we adapt our music only to society, then we give already what exists. So there we have to find a balance, which is not easy. Maybe I'm not so clear. Society nowadays is a swipe society. Everything has to go quick, 30 seconds, tuk, tuk, tuk. Of course, many pieces in early music, or also in romantic music, take hours. It's another tempo. I think it can be very interesting to convince people to go in another rhythm, to go in another tempo, to go slower, and to go 1 or 2 or 3 hours into another tempo. I think that's a complicated thing where we join our other difficulty of how to sell us. If you give the rhythm they can find on YouTube and Netflix, then they can also stay at home and watch YouTube and Netflix. But still, we have to convince them to come to us. So that's a complicated question, but I think it can be very interesting to take people into another rhythm.
Did it ever happen to you that you looked at the text of Renaissance Madrigal or any other aria or song and you were thinking, no, I don't want to sing that text?
Yeah, I was raised Catholic. We went to church, but not in a right way or something. But that's already with the Bible. Some texts of the Bible are complicated, certainly nowadays, what we see, what is happening in and around the Holy Land. When you sing Israel in Egypt or stuff like this, it's complicated, but we're also actors. If I played many times now Jason in Médée, in Charpentier's Médée, I think he's not a very nice person, but then it's my role to play him, and therefore I never said, no, I won't sing this. But I had difficulties to believe it, yes.
And how did you convince yourself? Is it like a Stanislavski system that you have to... What kind of method do you
You can also
use?
think that even singing a text where you don't believe in, that also can question people. The staging of Sellers in Médée, I had a friend saying, oh, but this scene, it's really so tough, I didn't like it, and she's not crazy, Médée, he painted her a bit like crazy. And I'm like, so her relationship goes wrong, she kills her kids, but she's not crazy? So we give also projections to characters in operas where you think, no, if somebody in daily life would do what Medea does, everybody would say she has to go to the psychiatric hospital. So we have to rethink things, and therefore sometimes saying tough things can also help, even if you don't believe it. Of course, when it's then about even about the balance in society between man and wife, for example. Even if you sing nowadays something which is absolutely not acceptable, let's hope our public will question, what are they singing? And the text then maybe is 300 years old, but what are we nowadays doing at our houses? We're not that perfect.
Do you think a musician should not explain that in the program notes, or like giving a lecture before, to put that into context? Like,
for example, Peter Sellers does it. He gives program notes. We can give some explanation. But for example, we have our Irish program, which the CD label of Alpha of the Dublin Gardens didn't want to translate all the texts. And we just recently brought it in our little festival where we live, and we translated all the texts. And they're spicy, and they're not. Sometimes you say, should we not translate this because it's in a church, the concert, but then I was working on the translations, and my father corrected it, but it still gave me an emotion, even if I knew everything I sung, to retranslate it into my mother tongue. Yeah, it was special. So then you can give a note, or the note can be, this is written in the 18th century. So sometimes the public, they're not stupid. I mean, so therefore we have to dare to do things. And for example, the how men and women, there was a phrase, woman's a treasure created for pleasure. I mean,
yes, very doubtful.
Yeah.
How do you program your concert programs? How do you curate them in a way that you choose the repertoire and you bring it to a certain place? Do you think like this will be played in church or in a concert hall? And does it influence the choice of the repertoire?
We have a broad spectrum of repertoire, and then it's a bit the halls that choose. So that's, I mean, I can of course suggest things, but the programmer is still the end responsible. But where I try to be creative, for example, this Telemann Rameau program, we bring in Potsdam in an evening version, but we will bring it in Utrecht in 4 little concerts, because it's morning. I mean, it's those 4 different times of the day. So there I try to be creative and adapt when it's possible, sometimes to use the hall in some ways. We just did this Clérambault Charpentier program, and we brought it in Namur, in a beautiful concert hall, the Grand Manège, and then we brought it here in Versailles in La Chapelle Royale. And you know, in La Chapelle Royale, probably the public didn't hear everywhere as good as in Namur, but you have the special experience of hearing this music in this setting. So sometimes in churches you have, honestly, acoustic problems. It's not always that easy, but it can also add an inspiration to what we bring. So you can win and lose at the same time sometimes.
And what are your upcoming plans for the ensemble, or maybe in your personal career as a singer? Do you have some exciting projects? I'm sure you do.
For in the both ways, it's to defend what I love defending, but also to expand the repertoire as a singer, to dive every now and then into repertoire where they think, oh, can his voice sing this or this? I like to also sing some romantic music where they think, oh, this voice type, but where I think, no, I can defend it, maybe in another way, but I like to defend it. For the ensemble, I think it's to go on the lines where we are, maybe with some bigger projects in the sense, so we have this French line, the Bach line, the Mozart line, to go on in that direction. Famous music, but also really lesser known pieces. And then I hope in the coming 5 to 10 years that we can do semi-staged or fully staged pieces. Wherefore, like I said, to enlarge the public of the pieces we are bringing, maybe to work more with dance. Of course, French music is very closely related to dance, to also there take a step. But for us as an ensemble, I have to be honest about this, it's just way more work to organize all of this. So and it's like everywhere you have to find the money to pay everybody correctly and to be able to defend the music artistically very well needs to be done by people who are paid correctly and by a team that can help us. So therefore it will be a going on battle, and honestly sometimes when we're discussing with the board and stuff, I know I will not live, I think, in my life the days of the early 90s where all the Baroque groups, just they did whatever they wanted and they didn't have to think so much about it. I think they just, it was open, the field was open. Now I have to think very well, what do I do, who can I pay how much, and how is it done? So there, it's a bit pragmatic, you have to be pragmatic, which is not very artistic to think like this. But at the other hand, I think it's sometimes a healthy way, because I spoke about the opera world. Sometimes there is a use of money in a way you think, why? I'm really happy to be with my ensemble active in so small festivals they can hardly pay for musicians correctly, but at the other hand I go to very big halls where they're used to put a full 120 people orchestra. So it's interesting to see the whole landscape like this, and I think it would be good for the people at the top of the landscape to know they need the bottom as well. For me, that's important. The small festival in the countryside in Europe or somewhere else brings a potential public also for the big halls. So that's important to not forget that it's a whole system, so to say.
Yes, I think that's it. That's what I wanted to ask you. Thank you very much. Thank you for tuning in to Inside Reading Enlightenment. If you enjoyed today's episode, I invite you to explore the description box below. You'll find some links and extras. And if this journey through early music inspired you, please consider following the podcast, sharing it with a fellow music lover, or leaving a kind review. It's a small gesture with a big echo, and it truly helps this project grow. Until next time, stay curious, stay kind, and keep listening between the lines. Bye bye.